In Norse mythology, we live in a world called Midgard. Midgard is Earth, a place of struggles, challenges. But the Norse also spoke about a second world, Asgard. Asgard was the home of the gods, beings of almost unimaginable abilities and insights. Perhaps you've heard the famous quotation from Arthur C. Clarke. He said, "Any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic." If we were to take a caveman and plant him in 21st century Denver, I guarantee you he would view us as gods. We will view the Asgardians in the same way, small g gods. There's another aspect of Norse mythology. There's an eternal rainbow bridge between Midgard and Asgard. It's called Bifrost. We need to build Bifrost. What? I'm sure you're thinking. Why would we even think of doing such a thing? Because we know how to build Asgard. I discussed it in detail in my book, and there are other books that do the same thing, based on known science and technology. No mythology required. But we need a way to get from here to there. Folks, we are in desperate straits as a species. I'm sure you're all aware of many of the challenges we face, but there's one whose impact is immediate and generally underestimated. That's technological unemployment, or the roaring ahead of automation, AIs, and the robots they control. It hasn't really hit us hard yet, but it's accelerating exponentially, which means in the 2020s, we're going to see whole professions falling like dominoes. Drivers will be replaced by automated vehicles in the early 2020s and then in mass later in the decade. Retail clerks are being replaced by Amazon Go as we speak. Those alone represent millions of jobs in the United States and many millions more worldwide, and IBM Watson has targeted hundreds of other professions, including doctors, lawyers, and many more. When this happens, and it's not if, but when, not only will large numbers of people lose their employment, their ability to provide for themselves and their families, but everyone around them, families, friends, communities, will feel the same anxiety, the existential threat. What do people do when they face existential threat? They reach for any lifeline, any possibility, however absurd it might seem to a calm, rational mind. There are plenty of demagogues in power and seeking power on this planet today who will offer their siren songs to these desperate people. We have three possibilities for the future, in my opinion. Ruin, which doesn't need any further explanation. Orwellian oligarchy. That's the default path, and yes, my symbolism is deliberate. Or evolutionary societies that can produce abundance, peace, and wondrous possibilities for humanity, like Asgard. We need to buy the time to have the chance to explore that third possibility so we don't walk down that default path. How could we do this? We need that bridge to buy us the time. Many people are saying we need a universal basic income, or UBI. I got excited when I heard about that a couple of years ago, and I investigated every single possibility that I had seen promoted would lead to bankruptcy. And then a man came to me, Michael Haynes, and he said, "I've got an idea, would you look at it?" I said, "Sure, I'll look at anything." I evaluated his idea. Check, 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 check. It met all my criteria. I couldn't believe it. It would work. Any nation, anytime, anywhere could implement this, starting tomorrow. So I've become an advocate for it. Now, what the heck is it, and how can such a thing work? He's literally talking about creating money from thin air and giving a check to every adult citizen every month. Isn't that a recipe for inflation? I imagine you're thinking that. That's what I thought. Here's how MUBI addresses that. First, you start very small. $10 a week per citizen. Ratchet it up, $10 a week, $10 a week, $10 a week. After 26 weeks, it's $260 a week, $1,000 a month. That's a livable income for the basic necessities in this country and in most of the world. But what happens if the inflation rears its ugly head? That's when the government steps in and freezes the MUBI until it understands what's going on. Further, if the inflation continues, a tiny transaction tax, just 1/4% on money going into the bank and out of the bank, those transactions is applied, and all of the revenues, no exceptions, go to paying down the money that was created, removing it from circulation, removing the inflation. Now, you still might not be persuaded, so I'm going to challenge you. I'm sure you all recall that we had two wars of choice, Afghanistan and Iraq, earlier in this century. The United States government taxed its citizens $3 trillion to pay for those wars. $3 trillion. Wait, I'm sorry. Why, no, they didn't. There weren't any taxes at all to pay for it. It was printed out of thin air. And we didn't have any noticeable inflation from it either. So my challenge to you is, if we can do that to fund wars, why can't we do that to fund our citizens who are becoming desperate and who need a lifeline, a bridge from here to there? I say we can. It's an experiment well worth doing. If we do this right, the future Asgardians, standing on our shoulders, can rise into the heavens, exploring realms of mental conception and exploration too vast for our puny minds. But they will look back upon us with a sense of gratitude and perhaps respect. Let us not be crushed into the dust of ruin. Let us not surrender our humanity and our humaneness to the overlords who seek that power. Let us instead create the basis for a new kind of society that raises the finest values of humanity to new and unparalleled heights. Thank you.